Saints fans and who that's from all over the world. It's time for the Bayou Blitz, y'all. With your hosts, Bob Rose and Kyle T. Kyle T. Mosley here with Bob Rose of the Bayou Blitz. What's going on, Bob?
Not a lot, Mr. Mosley. Happy Wednesday to not only yourself, but all of our fans of the Bayou Blitz, the NFL, and, of course, the New Orleans Saints. I hope this mid-January evening is treating everybody all right.
Yeah. It's kind of cool down here in H-Town, but it's still a good day. Everything's a good day, as Ice Cube would say. Today was a good day. Yeah. So, look, guys, Saints fans, not too much going on in the Big Easy, but we have Zion Williamson. He had his debut. We got the Saints. They are in the Pro Bowl. 10 of the 11 guys that are selected that are in the Pro Bowl. And, Bob, you can talk about that later. And Mickey Loomis talked to the media today. So those are some of the highlights and some of the things that we're going to go through on tonight. Guys, don't forget, you can follow the Saints News Network online at si.com/NFL/Saints, as well as you can go to social media on Facebook, Instagram, as well as on Twitter. And our handle is at Saints News. All right, Bob, let's talk, man. What you got for me?
Well, and like you pointed out in the opening, there's not a lot going on in New Orleans Saints world. We're all still kind of in a little bit of a funk. That's FUNK after the Saints upset loss in the first round of the playoffs to the Minnesota Vikings. And Kyle, I think a lot of that is reflected, but through us and the media too. You rest assured, Saints fans, we are going to kick ourselves in the rear end and get started on your free agency previews and your draft previews and everything like that. But this playoff season, I think, has been tough to watch. I can't bring myself to congratulate either the San Francisco 49ers or the Kansas City Chiefs. But due to the nature of our job, and I know you did too, we watched both conference championship games. I was particularly impressed, Kyle, with how the 49ers took care of business against the Green Bay Packers. They are really a buzzsaw on both sides of the football right now. And a lot of Saints fans have said, through social media and other avenues, hey, our Saints would have given these 49ers one heck of a ball game. I think you're probably right, and certainly a better game than what the Packers exhibited. But the point is, our guys didn't play well enough to get there on this particular year, and right now we're all having a little bit of a tough time taking that for a swallow. It's not the end of the universe, and it's certainly not the end of the world for this New Orleans Saints franchise. But this is a tough time of year.
Well, it's a case of missed opportunities. As Darryl Hall and Oates would have said, you got too many missed opportunities over the years from the New Orleans Saints under Sean Payton, as well as guided on the field by Drew Brees. Now, I can't fault Drew, and I cannot fault Sean for everything, but Sean Payton is the head coach. So if you look at a number of the years, all in all, I believe this team could have hoisted at least 3 to 4 Super Bowls. Okay. 2011 team, undoubtedly, in my opinion, has to be the best team yet that the Saints had fielded on the offensive side of the ball, right? They had some limitations, again, in the secondary, and that showed up in that San Francisco divisional playoff game where they lost. You had Roman Harper as well as Jenkins made a couple critical errors. You have Pierre Thomas got his bell rung, which that should have been a flag, right?
At least.
from was it Don Hittner? He called himself now. So if you look at everything that's gone on with this team, the divisional losses that they have had to the Vikings, this game that they lost just recently in the wild card game to the Vikings, the NFC Championship game, man. All these past 3 seasons, there's no reason why the New Orleans Saints should not be representing the NFC in the Super Bowls. Okay? No reason whatsoever. So those are 4 Super Bowls that you can point to that the Saints missed opportunities. And the question comes into play because I saw an article, I forgot which site, but people on Twitter are starting to question Drew Brees.
Yeah.
Okay. And to be fair to Drew, I think it was unfair to Drew to have a good offensive team and the lack of support defensively caused them to lose out on some major opportunities. There's no reason why we should have lost to the Seattle Seahawks, right? None. And if you look at that stretch, they could have easily gone to the Super Bowl because they could have defeated the Giants, I believe, won that year, right? There are so many woulda, coulda, shouldas that have plagued this era. That's the issue. Not that they did finally get over the hump in 2009, right? But you're talking about a good 4 or 5 other Super Bowls for a Hall of Fame quarterback, and I believe Sean Payton is potentially going to be a Hall of Fame coach that they have lost due to some errors and miscalculations. Your thoughts?
I agree with so many of your points. First of all, as far as the missed opportunities go, I am actually working on an article for our site, for SI.com. That kind of outlines those missed opportunities over the last decade that you talked about. Now, I only touched on those a little bit through the second half of my article, which should be in the next day or so. I talk about what this particular missed opportunity could mean for this current group of New Orleans Saints. But focusing on what you said, over the last decade, since the Saints' Super Bowl 44 victory over the Indianapolis Colts, in the decade since, the New Orleans Saints have a 154 record. That's 100 losses, 100 wins, 54 losses in the 10 years since. One of those, of course, Sean Payton was unfairly suspended for the year, but I believe that still counts against his particular win and loss record percentage as a coach. Irregardless, that's the franchise's record in 10 years. Kyle, that's pretty darn good. During those 10 years, they've won 4 NFC South championships, including 3 in a row, the last 3. They've qualified for the playoffs 6 times. They have had 13-3 records for 3 of those trips. And like you said, they don't have a Super Bowl to show for it. Now, earlier part of the decade, and I'm showing my age when I can make this comparison, the New Orleans Saints sort of resembled the Dan Fouts San Diego Chargers or the Dan Marino Miami Dolphins. Among the most, those 2 teams, and a third if you count Brees' New Orleans teams, these are 3 of the most proficient passing attacks in NFL history.
Don't forget the Buffalo Bills. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You're right. The early 90s Buffalo Bills with Jim Kelly. But at least they went to 4 straight Super Bowls. The Saints, other than their 2009 season, have not been to one. Fouts' Chargers didn't get to a single one at all, and Marino's Dolphins only got to 1. Now, to all the credit in the world to Sean Payton and Mickey Loomis in that front office, in the latter stages of the decade, they have rebuilt what was an aging defense in 2009, 10, and 11. They have rebuilt that defense into one of the more formidable units in the National Football League. They have established a little bit of balance on the offensive side to kind of curtail and widen Drew Brees' aging curve, shall we call it. Brees has a lot of football left, I think. You and I touched on that in more detail last week on last week's show. But he's no longer the guy that's going to win you consistently week in and week out by putting the ball up 40 to 50 times a game. Sean Payton recognizes that most weeks and has balanced that out with a balanced running attack and a very powerful offensive line. Having said that, the last 2 seasons for sure, and you can make a strong case for really the last 3 seasons, the Saints have had one of the most well-balanced teams and most powerful teams on both sides of a combination of both sides of the football entering the playoffs. Yet we don't have a Super Bowl trip to show for it. Forget Super Bowl win. They haven't even been able to go.
So Bob, why? Tell me based upon what you just stated, okay? Based upon what numbers are present, what positioning they had in playoffs, the opponents they had in playoffs, what were the key elements that these guys missed? It can't be on paper. What was missing?
I think, and obviously, we're going to table the referee buffoonery of last year, the overtime pass interference on Kyle Rudolph this year, and the 1 in a million miraculous last second play of a few years ago in Minnesota. Obviously, those were all direct plays that finished off the Saints. But you're right.
No.
That's not why they lost. That was only the end result. Number one on my list, why the New Orleans Saints lost those 3 games was because they lost the physical battle on both sides of the line of scrimmage in all 3 contests. That'd be the first thing I'd point to. Would you agree with that?
Why did they lose the physical battle?
I don't know, because they lost at the very style of game that got them to the playoffs in a position of strength in the first place, especially over the last 2 years.
Right. All right. So, again, here's Kyle with his boxing analogies again. So, bottom line is you have certain matchups, like you said. The matchup of physicality, you can't tell me that the New Orleans Saints offensive line could not have done a better job against that defensive line of the Vikings. You cannot tell me that the Saints defense at that time, when they went up to Seattle, could not have taken care of and prevented Russell Wilson and the Marshawn Lynch attack. You cannot tell me that that divisional round game against the 49ers, that they could not have handled those 49ers being as aggressive. The problem has and always will be, in my opinion, and people question me, call me out on this if you think I'm wrong, is that they did not prepare themselves to be more physical. They did not prepare themselves mentally first, Bob. This is the problem. If you look, they cakewalked into Seattle. This game against the Vikings, they thought it was going to be a cakewalk again.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a lack of mental and passion to go with it. See, the Vikings were spent. They left all their passion in New Orleans, then they laid an egg. right? Every team that comes to face New Orleans in the playoffs and defeats New Orleans, they lay an egg the next game, right? I think you mentioned that once in an article as well as on the air. So it has to be the missing ingredient that people cannot see, that intangible. How do you prepare mentally to attack your opponent? Okay, so let's look at that team that's up in New England. Okay, so you can't tell me that Drew Brees is not better than Tom Brady. The only difference is Tom Brady executed when he needed to execute, and he had the players supporting him on the defensive side to execute as well, to be able to support when the offense was not doing their job. That comes from preparation from their leadership. Okay? So then, are you saying, Kyle, you're boiling everything down to the leadership? Do you think the leadership may be the problem? I don't know if it's the problem, but I can say it may be that there was something in these guys' eyes that had me concerned when I saw them preparing on the field. Okay? I told I was looking at the 49ers and Green Bay game, right? And I think I was talking to a relative of mine. And I said, look at their eyes. They look defeated.
Yeah.
That's you could just see in Aaron Rodgers' eyes. He had no confidence after going down, was it 17 or 4? They had no confidence that they were going to win that game. No passion. They lost their passion right there. Okay? The San Francisco 49ers, when they beat us in that divisional round, early in the game, they were more passionate. And guess what? When we had the opportunity to stop them, I think we kicked that ball and they got – I think we stopped them within the 20-yard line to allow Alex Smith and those guys to drive the field. They lost their passion. They allowed Malcolm Jenkins to be one-on-one, not once, but twice with Vernon Davis. Okay? So not only are you losing your passion, man, I think they lose somewhere in it. They lose their instincts of how to play ball or how to think like an offensive team would think and what we should do to counter. Because there was no reason they should have left Vernon Davis on him, allowed him to be on Vernon Davis one-on-one. No reason. Or Malcolm Jenkins played poor technique in allowing Vernon Davis to get off that ball and go inside on that slant to be able to bring him down the field.
And it was both.
Right? So if you look at what happened with, what's that boy, P.J. Williams, okay? This last game, and I know I'm going off, Bob. I'm sorry. But think about what P.J. Williams, so they had two wide and one on the – it's 2 wide and 1 on the side, or it's 4 wide. They had 2 and 2. That's what it was. Yeah. So my instincts read me correct. If you look at the only one of our cornerbacks that played their position well at that time was Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. He played closer to that wide receiver. I think he was on Diggs, if I'm not mistaken. Closer to the wide receiver. The other two, Lattimore, Williams, and I forgot the other one, Janoris Jenkins, right? They played on the at the goal line. Okay? So what PJ did, and they essentially allowed them to get a head start run. There was no way he can misdirect Rudolph, and it was an easy pitch and catch because Rudolph had 6-inch advantage over him at least. So that's what I'm saying. Where's the football awareness, man? We need to have guys with some instincts like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. That's what we need. Some guys who are instinctive in what they're doing. Janoris Jenkins has instincts as well. That's why he's able to have so many of those interceptions over his career. You got to be able to mix some football knowledge with some instincts of understanding the scenario and the situation. And that's what Bill Belichick coaches so well. The situation, right? And I don't know if you ever saw this, and I know this is my last point. When Seattle threw that play on the goal line where Marshawn Lynch was just dominating them, right? All they had to do is hand that ball off one last time, and they would have had a Super Bowl. Pete Carroll or whoever that offensive coordinator in their infinitely football-y wit called a dumb play because the instinct on the field and the momentum was there for you. That left side was dominating the Patriots defensive line, and that's all they had to go is one. And it was second down. They had to, I don't get it. Why would you need to call that play? But take you back to the practices earlier that week. If you ever saw this, they showed the practices of the Patriots where that kid was getting beaten once, twice, 3, I think 4 times in a row on that same play. But he got it. He saw it enough that when it came to game time, he was ready and he was prepared, right? I think Tracy Porter said the same thing for him. He saw it so many times, he knew what was coming. Okay? So all I'm saying is we got to have some instinctive guys, man. It's sometimes when we're choosing our draft picks and free agents, do they have the football knowledge, common sense to be able to play this game? And I think we've had some really good, talented young men, but sometimes I think that they forget the scenarios that they're in not at during the game, but at critical times during the game. Now, I dropped the mic. What do you think?
Pick your mic back up because I got a question for you. And we both talked about the leadership among this group of Saints last week as well. Do you? And I asked this question with both of us already knowing that the answer is going to be a combination of both. But in regards to what you're saying, do you put the onus of responsibility, the onus of failure, more on the Saints coaches or more on that leadership hierarchy, the Drew Breeses, the Michael Thomas, the Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, Marshawn Lattimore, etc.? Obviously, it's a combination of both. But if you're going to tip the scale of blame to one or the other, do you put it more on the leadership hierarchy among the players, or do you put it on the coaches?
Good question. I need to think about that one, to be honest. The reason why I need to think about it, I really can say if everything boils down to the coach, head coach, right?
Yeah.
Here's the problem I had with the play to Thielen. Who got injured? Was it Marshawn?
Yeah, Marshawn got injured, and P-Rob was in coverage.
Okay, so therefore, I apologize, guys. On that last play, Lattimore is on the bench. So that was P-Rob. Okay, so every quarterback knows you always pick on the weakest link.
Mm-hmm.
Every defensive quarterback should know where the weakest link is. So who should have pointed out to Marcus Williams, we need some support here? Was that A.J. Klein or DeMario Davis? That's A.J. Klein's responsibility, right?
I believe so, in that particular alignment, yes.
Now, I can throw it back on Marcus Williams. You've been in this league long enough now, young man. You should have known there's a potential for a big play where. That's what a safety is supposed to be. I'm supposed to be scouting everything in front of me to understand where I may be needed. Right? So therefore, what took him so long? Bob, if I recall watching that play several times afterward, he was too far to the other side. He couldn't make a play on the ball. Plus, I'm thinking, this is 30 to 40 yards down the field. Do you not see him coming?
Yeah.
So therefore, okay, let's go back. This is his third year in the league?
Yep.
Okay, so Saquon was injured. I know that's one of the reasons why they brought him in.
Mm-hmm.
Because to compete there. So they had no other choice to be able to keep Marcus Williams in that slot. But if I was a coach, and I don't know who Gardner Johnson was on at that particular time, but somebody has to tell me, why would you allow a guy who's cold off the bench in a critical time to get burned? Okay. Why didn't someone call timeout?
Yes.
Just like on that goal line play, remember I told you last week, why didn't someone call timeout? Let's look at the play. This is our season. This is not just a play and we go on and we get the ball back and we see if we score. This is our season, and no one stopped that play from being ran. Tell me, Bob, who's that on?
It's on the players on the field, and that's where I tip my scale of responsibility.
Okay, what about Sean Payton? Now he could have called. He is the head coach. Couldn't he not say, "Hey, man, we've got to do something here"? You know, I don't like how this is set up. I don't like this matchup. What I see. Timeout, ref. I'm standing right by the ref. Mm-hmm. Timeout. Let's think about this. Let's make them call another play. What they did was essentially gave them the play that they wanted to run anyway, an opportunity to run the play. Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. Either Sean Payton or Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen is the defensive coordinator, I believe, does have the power, if not to call a timeout himself, then at least has the autonomy to tell his defensive captain, call a timeout. I don't like what I see here.
Right. And I think that's where you were coming from. Who's that defensive captain? So can we, and I don't want to be unfair to AJ, but can we be, let's say, a little bit impartial here? Just ask this question. Is he or was he during his tenure the leader that we needed in the middle?
I think A.J. Klein is an extremely intelligent football player, and I've liked what he's done in his career with the New Orleans Saints. And we've broken down, you and I have broken down AJ Klein's game numerous times. He does have some very pronounced weaknesses. One of them is in pass coverage when he's caught in open space. But that's only due to some athletic limitations compared to other linebackers even on his own team. As far as what AJ Klein sees, his read and react and breaking down tendencies on the football field, he is extremely intelligent. He always has been. And I personally, I thought he had his best season as a New Orleans Saint this year. He's not infallible, though. And he, just like most of the players on that roster, made some very, very critical mistakes in that loss to the Vikings. In AJ's case, his was down the stretch, not so much from the physical aspect like we saw out of the failures of P.J. Williams, again, and Patrick Robinson, again, and the lack of pass rush, again. AJ's errors came more in the mental aspect, the read and recognition type of thing, where we could be wrong too. Demario Davis may very well, because he has the C on his uniform as well. He may have been more of a position of responsibility, especially on that goal line play. But I do think you're right. I think that it was AJ. That was more in a position to say, I don't like what I see here. Timeout. Let's regroup on the sidelines and come back out. And we broke down, especially that final play and the deep pass to Thielen that led up to the game winner. And we both agreed you can only play with the players that you already have on the field. And Marshawn Lattimore was dinged up, which was a big loss and a crucial moment of the game. But again, that is where it's up to Aaron Glenn, the secondary coach, and more specifically Dennis Allen, the defensive coordinator, with the help of his defensive captains, to say, okay, I don't have Marshawn Lattimore in the game, and they have Adam Thielen. I already have Janoris Jenkins, who's been doing a spectacular job on Stephon Diggs all game long. So that's a shutdown. We know Kirk Cousins is going to come after P.J. Williams and or Patrick Robinson. That's what every quarterback does. That's what every quarterback should do. How can I protect my weakest links? And that is where the Saints' failures in big moments and playoff moments in the last 3 years have come. It's Marcus Williams making awful blunders at the worst times. It's not protecting your weakest links, your Patrick Robinsons and your P.J. Williams, and before that, your Ken Crawleys. It's leaving them exposed. And when it comes down to that kind of thing, it's a simple matter of the other guy being better than your guy. You need to do a better job as coaches. You need to do a better job of protecting your weakest link. P.J. Williams was lined up man on man on the outside on Kyle Rudolph, one of the better tight ends in all of the NFL. P.J. Williams is going to lose that matchup 99 times out of 100. And you didn't have any safety help over the top.
Bob, I was looking at the play. I said, they're about to throw it over here.
Yep. Same.
And I'm sitting on my couch watching this, right? So you said something that was pretty interesting. Talent. AJ Klein has talent, has intelligence. That's the word you use, intelligence. Sometimes intelligence is not enough.
No.
Okay? That's where I'm coming at is the instincts. Where are your common sense football knowledge of the game being thrown into the equation? Okay? So you can talk about how intelligent, let's take our best player, Drew Brees is, but Did Drew Brees understand the where he was in this game? Okay. Did Sean Payton is highly intelligent as a coach, but did he understand where they were after that first quarter, where the adjustments were not being made? Okay. Now, people I know may say you're crazy to say this, Kyle, but I'm just saying some things you can't be so stubborn. Okay. You can't keep saying I'm gonna do it my way. And I used to see Jake Delhomme do something that was, and I don't see too many of these guys doing it like they did it well in Carolina at that time. Jake Delhomme wasn't a great quarterback, in my opinion. He was not. Yeah. He was a good, serviceable quarterback. He had Steve Smith and Muhammad. But that back shoulder pass, they patented it and they did it very well. Right? So when you see wide receivers who can't get open, why aren't you coaching these guys to come back for the ball more? Doing those up and comebacks. That's all Carolina did to move the ball most of the time. Mm-hmm. Right? No, I'm going to do it my way, and they should run the routes this way. Man, I can't tell you how many times I saw Ted Ginn Jr. running down the freaking field, not even turning his head. Okay? All right. Sound like I'm bashing tonight, guys. I'm sorry, but I'm just being honest, man. Some things you have to say, well, Ted, man, we got to call something different. Coach, all right? So it seemed like to me, in my opinion, again, my humble opinion, that they got disinterested because the focus was on one guy at times. Okay. I think Ted could have been utilized in another area. Use that speed to break up and come back. He could have had more of a opportunity at footballs if that was the case. I think they didn't do the crossing routes to utilize Ted's ability to escape as much. Now, if you have a defense that's pressuring Drew so quickly, that's why were we calling more downfield routes for Ted Ginn and Traquan than having them to kind of adjust their routes to come back? That's what I'm saying. Where are the adjustments there? In-game adjustments. Okay?
And that's a valid question. And we've seen Sean Payton make those kind of adjustments over the years when this offense was more of a pass-happy offense. When you knew that Drew was going to throw the ball 45 times in a game, the defense knew it, and they pinned their ears back and they came after him. Yet Brees still had success throwing for a lot of yardage and getting rid of the ball quickly. Well, he got rid of the ball quickly. He wasn't just chucking it up for grabs. They adjusted. Sean and Pete Carmichael's had the receivers adjust their routes. The receivers themselves would have on-site adjustments with their quarterback, Drew. Now, this Saints team had a very seasoned receiving core then. By that stage, Devery Henderson, Lance Moore, Robert Meacham, and especially Marcus Colston, they and Drew knew each other like the back of their hand, like we say out of Michael Thomas and Drew Brees now. But Ted Ginn has been in this offensive system for 3 years. Traquan Smith has been in this offensive system for 2 years. Yet we continue to see the same kind of failures after those men time and time again. And again, is it all on the player? Mostly because they've both been in different ways. Both Ginn and Traquan have been disappointments. But you also, as coaches, and I know this more than anyone, I coached for many years. As coaches, you need to play to the strengths of what you have on the roster. You can, and I say it again, you can only play with the players that you have. You can't play chess with a game of with a box of checkers. You can't. You play to your strengths. You utilize your strengths, and you do your best to cover up your weaknesses. We saw, and you just made the point, we saw Ted Ginn Jr. have the most successful season of his veteran career as a New Orleans Saint in 2017. Why? He's always been able to take the top off of a defense, but we saw Ted work his way through these shorter and intermediate routes with a lot of success, something that we didn't think that he would be able to have in this kind of offensive system when the Saints first signed him in 2017. We didn't see that this year. And it has nothing to do with Ted Ginn's speed. He can still take the top off of a defense. Why didn't we see the same kind of production from Ted Ginn in 2019 that we saw in 2017?
Where's the passion?
Don't think that
where was the passion? Where was the focus?
Well, yeah.
I'm telling you, a lot of preparation. You can be as technically sound. You can be as talented as you want to be. Talent does not win. Passion has to be a part of the equation. If you don't have the passion, if you don't have that grit, that's it. Grit. Remember, I put a posting up, grit, guts, and grind. Mm-hmm. If you don't have that, if you're not willing to get dirty, to get physical, all right, some fights man, I can't out-jab this dude, so I'm have to go inside and beat. That's what Rocky had to do. All right, Apollo was tearing him up until he went inside. He had to change you got to change the equation. The Saints were going to tear the Vikings up if they left Everson Griffin on the outside. They had to change the equation. You see, there are sometimes in these games that a coach and the coach's approach and the coach's mental, it's almost like using the force with these guys to say this is how we're going to do this, guys, and they feel it and they understand it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does.
Where's the grit? Where's the grind? Where's the guts? That should be a good article. Where's the grit, grind, and guts? That's where we're missing it, man. Those teams that lost in a huge way when they went up to Seattle, they lost their grind. When they lost that last play, I'm sorry. And after 3 years, I look at that play more and more. There's no reason as a safety you're just going to allow a guy to go up and not even hit him. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. I don't understand the concept there. Maybe to this day, no one has really fully explained that to me. Okay. I don't understand. What was the other thing, Kyle? You don't understand how this game at home with those fans paying all that money throughout this whole season, running, supporting you ever since that no call, right? Behind this team every step of the way, even when Drew went down, supported Teddy. At first they didn't until you started winning. You know, I saw those bandwagons there. So, but
yeah,
where's your grit and grind in response to we can't let these people down? That's what that 2009 team was saying, right? This is for the city of New Orleans. Sometimes you got to hear that crowd to say, all right, we got to do this. We got to do this. So do we have enough of those guys in that huddle like more than just one Demario Davis to say in that defensive backfield, we got to get to it, man. Get your head up, man. Get your, I can't say some of the words, but get it together. That's what I'm talking about. Where's that quarterback that's going to tell you to get it? Look, man, look, we're going to win. We're going to win. Professor used to say this a long time ago. He said, Drew, with all his talents, his inability, Drew is still, at this point of his life, he's not going to be as intense with those guys in those huddles, right? And Tom Brady, you saw him on the sideline cussing those young guys out. I've never seen that in Drew. Right? No. I'm not saying that's what you want to see, but sometimes as the leader, you got to say, hey, man, what you thinking? Mm-hmm. I need you to do X. Look, man, I don't care. Get it done. Okay? And if I don't do it, get in my butt about this. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I'm ranting and raving all day tonight, man. But
no, Kyle. I mean, there's a lot to what you're saying, and that, in my opinion, that is more so than any other reason. That is why this team lost, especially in the 2017 playoffs to the Vikings, and this season to the Vikings. Because you have to match that intensity of your opponent. You're not going to win on talent alone.
Why don't you set the tone? But why do you have to match it? That's the point I was trying to make. Bob, is because, see, the Patriots, for years, people had to match them. You understand? Why do we have to go into these games, these winnable games? That has been always the Achilles heel of a Sean Payton-led team. The winnable games have been the most disappointing games because we know we should have won these games going in onto that field, and we come out with sometimes not with a little W, with a huge W. How many times we went up to when they were the St. Louis Rams, knowing we were more talented than them, and just get Wallamack. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, and I misspoke when I said match intensity. I think the more accurate phrasing is, is set the tone with your intensity and let them try to match you from the onset. 2017 playoffs, and I've said it many times before. You're on the road against Minnesota. You're already an underdog, but you have the momentum because of the way you finished the season. In other words, you came into the game probably with more momentum. And the last thing you want to do when you're on the road in the playoffs is come out flat. And they did in that 2017 game. They were behind by, I think, 3 scores at halftime.
Right.
And the same kind of thing happened this year. Now you're at home. And you come out flat at home. You come out flat on the road, you realize the risk, you probably lost the game. You come out flat at home in a playoff game, that's inexcusable.
They came out flat in San Francisco. They came out flat in Seattle. They came in flat in Minnesota. They came out flat. Remember, they came out flat a little bit against the Eagles too, right?
Yep, absolutely.
They came out flat. Why are you coming out flat in winnable games?
And circling back to my question,
it makes me wonder if it's not them that's coming out flat, maybe it's Sean Payton's coming out flat.
Well, and that's what makes me circle back to the question that I asked you about which way do you slightly tip the scale of blame, we'll call it tonight's show. And in that particular instance, these are grown men. Granted, a lot of them are young, 22, 23 years old, but you are professional football players. You are professional competitors at the highest level. You shouldn't need a coach in your ear to tell you this is an important game and you need to be up for it. That's where I put the responsibility on the players. You come out and you whip the other guy. You talk about setting the tone for intensity. That's what comes from the players, not the coaches. The coaches set in place the game plans. They make the adjustments. That's on them. The product on the field. You and I are fair. Yeah, you love to use the boxing analogy, and I get it. I love it. I love them myself. You and I are one-on-one. We're inside the ring of a boxing match. We have our trainers. We have our cornermen. We have our entourage. But when you and I step between those ropes, nobody else is helping. It's mano a mano at that point. And if you're more intense than I am, and I don't match you or set the intensity tone right off the bat, guess who has the advantage?
Well, great point. So therefore, then that leads to two different dynamics: leadership on the sidelines, leadership on the field. Okay. So therefore, some people don't like vocal guys. They call them divas or hindrances, or they call them distractions. And you hear those words. But sometimes, though, you need a pebble in your shoe to remind you're walking. Right? To remind you, okay, yeah, I am going in this. Oh, yeah, this is the type of road I'm getting on. Oh, yeah, it's not easy. It's uncomfortable. But it reminds you still got to continue to walk in the direction you need to walk into in order to get where you need to go. That's what pebbles kind of do for you, kind of remind you of that. So who's the pebble in the shoe on the offensive side of the ball? Who's going to get, other than Drew Brees, who else out there is getting into someone's ear? I don't see it.
No, and I love Michael Thomas.
He's not going to say anything.
No, he's a lead by example kind of guy, very similar to Drew.
Alvin Kamara's not going to tell anybody anything.
Nope.
The only person that would have done that was Mark Ingram.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, defensively, you have those guys.
That's where I was telling you that missing element. Defensively, let's take DeMario Davis off the field. Who else? Cam?
Cam.
All right, now Cam's gone. Who?
Maybe Malcolm Brown. But
Sheldon
he's
Rankins.
Every down, yeah.
Sheldon Rankins was missing, guys.
Yeah, he was.
I'm telling you, that was that missing element. That defense backfield, somebody needs to be the leader out there. We need a true leader out there that's going to be piping up some noise. Okay. Now, Kyle, well, you saying Marshawn Lattimore is not true? I know he's emotional, but I don't know if he's going to get in those other guys' face. That's all I'm saying.
No,
I know Marshawn does a great job with his performance. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I don't know if he's, and I don't know if someone's going to get in his face. You see what I'm saying? Who will do that? Who will say, Marcus, what the hell were you doing? Who's going to do that? Probably this young kid, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, give him another year or two.
I can see that. And I'm also, I also think that it could come from Janoris Jenkins. He is that kind of player. And he is the kind of player, you pointed out, how emotional Marshawn Lattimore is. And neither one of us are saying that that's a bad thing, but you need to keep your emotions in check. And I think we saw Marshawn lose a little bit of composure that Sunday afternoon. And we have seen it before too. Marshawn needs kind of a calming factor when he gets like that. He is not the kind, he's going to be an emotional guy, but I don't put him in the category of an emotional leader. Marcus Williams is on the other end of that spectrum. He needs an emotional leader to keep him intense. I know that I just got done saying you're a professional football player and a professional competitor. You shouldn't need that. I know. Von Bell, I'd kind of lump Von in the category with Michael Thomas, Drew Brees, a quieter kind of AJ Klein, a quieter kind of leader. He's not an in-your-face kind of guy. Kenny Vaccaro was an in-your-face kind of guy. I did not like Kenny as a player. I did not like his particular skill set, but he was that kind of guy. And I see those kind of factors out of Janoris Jenkins. Yeah, I know he has a checkered history. I'm willing to give him a pass on some of that stuff. He was a real key for the Saints secondary those last couple games, and that man came to play against the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, look, Bob, and Saints fans, trust me when I say this. I say this with the most respect and love for my team. They got to get it together. Mm-hmm. This year is crapola or get off the potola. You understand? This year can't be anything less than not going to the Super Bowl, but winning. Okay? The problem is, and if you listen to Mickey Loomis's conference with the media today, there are challenges that they're going to have to meet financially. Mm-hmm. So therefore, when you say that leads me to believe that he knows, and that one, like you said, yes, it was disappointing the way they left the field against, and they performed. But it also is disappointing that this may have been one of the best last chances for Brees to actually notch a Super Bowl. Now, I don't think they have another chance next year without him.
No.
In my opinion, because I know Teddy is going to get paid somewhere. I just believe right now, if they don't assemble a decent defensive team and bring in some good critical free agents, we're going to be in trouble. That's all I'm saying.
Do you think, and I think you essentially just answered the way I think that you're going to answer, and you know how I feel. But you called it a make or break year. If they don't reach that goal again, if they have a similar ending in 2020 as they have the last 3 years, is it time to rip this whole thing up and start all over again?
You can't.
Thank you.
You can't.
We're seeing a lot of that through Saints Twitter, Saints social media. You and I both have, and you and I think very similarly. So I figured you were going to answer that. I just wanted to hear you say it.
You can't. What you gonna do, man? What do you guys want to go back to 79 years, 3 straight 79 years? Where in some of those easy to win games they lost, right? I just think, man, we got I just want to see how they handle the free agency.
Yeah.
Not the draft, the free agency. And in years past, Mickey Loomis has done a pretty great job with handling the free agency. But we can't handle the free agency with just guys that are going to fill the blank. Yeah, we can't have fill the blank guys. I like that. You should write an article about that too. We can't have fill the blank guys. Fill in the blank. We need to have guys that are going to, that they have some talent somewhere that we can be able to spot the talent, and we're going to be able to utilize the talent. That guy, Mostert, is a living proof that people have passed up on talent, right? Because they didn't want to cultivate the talent, right? There's some guys that you've got to be willing to cultivate. And can they do it? Can they do it? Can they find it? Can they do it?
And this is what worries me about free agency. Like you said, the draft is the draft. They, especially since they signed Jeff Ireland to head up their scouting department. I don't think I defy anybody to show me that that any team has drafted better than the New Orleans Saints since 2017. But it's free agency, and we have seen good Mickey Loomis and bad Mickey Loomis. The good Mickey Loomis, and obviously he doesn't do it by himself. He has his own department, and he works very, very closely with Sean Payton. But the good Mickey Loomis has been the guy that has identified a player in his prime, someone that people like you or I heading into free agency might categorize as quote-unquote second-tier free agents. Now, we call them that because they're going to be a little bit lower in cost, maybe not the name brand recognition. A guy like Demario Davis, a guy like Malcolm Brown, a guy like A.J. Klein. Guys that maybe weren't necessarily superstars for their previous teams, but they're coming into their second contract with a lot to prove because they aren't that name brand yet, and they are coming into their prime. We have seen Davis, Brown, and to a lesser extent Klein have a huge impact on the defensive improvement. And that is why this team has been so terrific over the last 3 years after retooling their roster after back-to-back 7 and 9 seasons. Those trifecta of 7 and 9 seasons were a direct result, I think, of bad Mickey Loomis. The kind of guy that was coming off of a 2013 season thinking, we just need a big name. We're just a big name away from the Super Bowl on defense. I'm going to go out and sign Jarris Byrd. I'm going to go out and sign Brandon Browner. These guys have been to the big show. They're the kind of guys that that everybody, we're going to get in a bidding war for them. And I don't have to remind everybody what Jarris Byrd and Brandon Browner and James Laurinaitis and a few others that I won't even bother.
The system, their talents or abilities didn't work well with the system.
Exactly.
That we had, right? So when you have the evaluation process is a science to many, and it's a unpredictable science because it leaves out the grit, the grind, and the guts.
Mm-hmm.
Laurinaitis was on his last leg, literally.
Yep. Yeah.
Jarris Byrd tore up, was it his groin or hamstring that was giving him the problem?
I think it was his groin.
Okay. And groin injuries, I don't care who you are, that's going to affect how you run and how you perform.
Not to mention the back problems.
Who's the other guy? Browning was just a head case. But it also exposed the fact that he was a part of a system that needed a zone to protect him. I was listening to someone and I read a story about how Darrelle Revis was really, he's saying, you guys like Richard Sherman, but he was never on an island. And it was clear, if you looked at how Richard Sherman got beaten by, was it Jimmy Graham?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I was looking at it and I was concerned because he looked kind of gimpy on that play, man. He did. His hamstring, I was about to say, he's about to pull it. He looked like he was about to pull it, man. So, Bob, all we can do right now, man, when we do these evaluations, everybody's not going to be perfect. It's not a perfect science. You just got to be able to continue to get the depth. I think the depth really helped the Saints in 2019. Can you find players that will be good complementary players that they can provide the depth at the critical spots? But you cannot do what they have done the past 2 seasons as well in not getting a playmaker at wide receiver. That
Correct.
is not that I do put on the front office. I do put on possibly why it was just, it's a no-brainer for Saints fans to look at and say we need a playmaker, right? Why are we getting just middle-of-the-road people all the time? I don't get it, man. When you need a playmaker on defense, too, we were saying that for a long time. We need a playmaker at cornerback. Okay, you got one. But you got to have somebody across from him to complement him. Crawley did it fine for 1 season. Then I don't know what happened to the young man. Delvin Breaux did it before he got injured, right? So that's all I'm saying. You need playmakers. You need at least 3 playmakers on your offensive side as well as on your defensive side to say you can have a good squad. If the Arizona Cardinals decided to select Nick Bosa versus Kyler Murray, I don't believe that San Francisco defense will be as good. Okay? That's my opinion. But also, Bob, if you look at that defense that they're fielding, Nick Bosa just doesn't bring good talent. What does he also bring? Some guts, some grind, some grit.
Serious intensity.
Because Armstead doesn't have the guts, grind, and grit. Right? He's a good player. But he's a very nice young man. Right? I can look at on our side, will Marcus Davenport ever have that guts, grind, and grit that Cam Jordan had? He's a very nice young man. So when are we going to get beyond? We need to have some nice young men. We got to have some, that's what you got to have sometime when you play those defensive spots, right? That's what you got to have sometime in a running back that, okay, you need for me to pick out 1 yard, right? Where's that running back? And I think the Saints need to look into trying to draft for some of these running backs this year too. Yeah, that's just my opinion.
And we'll have, we'll certainly have plenty of time, to break down. Free agency is next on our docket, and we'll have loads of time and bring in tons of experts to help us break down the draft too, like we always do. But going back to and I know we're running a little bit short on time here. One thing I wanted to ask you about, the wide receiver. And I personally think that the Saints would be better suited if they're going to sign a free agent wide receiver to grab a second-tier receiver and focus on drafting one, hopefully in the first round, or at the very least moving up into the second round to get one. Based off of what Mickey Loomis said in his presser today, and I saw the comment too, he was very specific and almost ominous when he mentioned the financial challenges. And we know the contract situations that the Saints face, not only this year, but following next year too, that they're probably going to have to address some of those this offseason. Because of that, you and I both know, Mr. Mosley, that a top-flight wide receiver on the free agent market, he ain't cheap. And they already have the highest paid, I think he's still the highest paid anyway until the next contract negotiation, the highest paid wide receiver in the league in Michael Thomas. Do you take Loomis's comment, and if digging a little bit deeper, does that tell you that the Saints will focus on other areas outside of wide receiver in free agency, therefore perhaps focusing or bringing the focus to a wide receiver in the top of the draft of their draft priorities.
Okay, so Julio Jones is the highest paid. Remember, he got the contract after Michael.
Right.
The way I look at some of the drafts, I've looked at some of the mock drafts online already for how we can approach some of our upcoming articles. Justin Jefferson from the LSU Tigers fits the profile of the type of wide receiver the New Orleans Saints should go after. The problem is now Joe Brady sits in Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Carolina has a unique situation where either they're going to package a deal to move up to get that number one spot, because I always thought it was kind of interesting that he decided to go to Carolina. I know Rule made him a great offer, but I thought it would have been in the best interest of Mr. Brown immediately to go and get Joe Brady as his offensive coordinator.
Yes.
But he's too cheap.
Yes.
Okay. That could have been the ultimate selling point for Joe Brady. We immediately want you to be our offensive coordinator. Did they hire somebody as their coach yet?
I don't think that they did. But remember, the Bengals head coach comes from the Sean McVay coaching tree. I think he was McVay's offensive coordinator actually the year before.
Okay, so Zach Taylor. That's who's the offensive coach. Okay, so Joe Burrow is going to have a hard time with him, in my opinion. Okay. I think if he goes up there, he could probably linger in some mediocrity.
Mm-hmm.
Even Freddie Kitchens got another job and he's gone to New York. Okay. So now I understand Zach Taylor probably didn't want to give up offensive coordinator duties. That's probably why if he brought in Joe Brady, that would have been a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so will the Bengals give up a number one pick for those guys to jump ahead? Who could they be able to package a deal for? Luke Kuechly is now out of the league. And I'm just going to go on record and say, since we need a linebacking coach, Luke Kuechly has expressed interest in being in the linebackers coach.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we bring him in as linebackers coach? That's all I'm saying. A guy who has a whole lot of guts, grit, and will get in somebody. Okay. I respect his game. So Saints have some, and I saw a number of drafts saying we should get the Utah State quarterback. Or we should get, what's the young man from Oklahoma, Jalen Hurts. Man, we need a wide receiver, guys. We need a playmaker that can do some things. And I think right now, if you look at how Jefferson has been prepared by Joe Brady, this last season has really helped his game. He has stepped up his game. And I think that's what we need to do. Someone like that. We need a playmaker at 24.
I couldn't agree more. And again, I know we're going to have plenty of time to break this down. Not only the Saints' needs and the different mock drafts, but we're also going to have a chance to look closer at individual draft prospects. But yeah, early on, Justin is one of my two early favorites for the Saints to grab at 24 wide receiver. The other one being, and I apologize if I butcher his name, I promise I will perfect it as we get closer to the draft. The kid from Colorado, Laviska Shenault. He's built very similarly to Jefferson. Actually, he's a little bit heavier. The Buffaloes used Laviska a lot in the backfield too. They moved him around the offensive formation, so that shows me that this young man has versatility, working out of the slot, wide, and even as a running back, or on those short end arounds that say the Chiefs like to do with their wideouts and the Rams like to do with their wideouts. So those two men, Shenault and Justin Jefferson, are my early favorites. But I think that there's going to be a run of wide receivers from about pick 18 through the end of the first round, right where the Saints sit in that sweet spot. We have seen Sean Payton and Mickey Loomis be aggressive in the draft before, identify a particular prospect, and move up a handful of spots to get him. I am hoping they did it with defensive end and Davenport 2 years ago. They did it last year twice. They identified McCoy in the second round, and they moved to get Chauncey Gardner-Johnson in the fourth when CGJ started to slip a little bit. Let's hope, for Drew Brees' sake and for the sake of the Saints franchise, that they will identify an offensive playmaker and do that same kind of thing.
Okay, so let me just say this. Justin Jefferson could slip into the second round. I don't think he will slip all the way down because Saints do not have a second round pick, right?
Correct.
So they're going to have to make a decision. Are we going to go offensive line or are we going to go wide receiver? I think those are two major priorities right there. If they don't re-sign Andrus Peat, I think Pete is going to probably price them out. But yes, I could be wrong unless they work something out, right? If they lose Pete, you're going to have somebody else. Well, then you say, well, didn't we sign Easton? Easton performed serviceably well in Pete's absence due to the broken forearm, right? I think the Saints the dilemma is if you don't find the guy that you want, you need to find a guy that can be solidified for a long time. Is that one of those offensive linemen from Wisconsin? Those guys do well in the NFL. Look at Ryan Ramczyk. So I'm just saying we're going to probably need some guard help.
Agreed.
Because I know Larry Warford made the Pro Bowl and all that, and it's nice, but we're going to need some help on that line. Yeah. We need some youth. Probably two more offensive linemen, to be honest.
I think so too. I think they'll sign one an interior lineman in free agency, and I do think that they'll draft one. My early look at the draft, and I can't wait to pick Mike Tillier's brain too as we get closer. The interior line slots, they aren't top heavy, but it's deep. In other words, there are a few good prospects that as of right now are projected to go in day two, either the second or third round. So as of right now, you can if you're the New Orleans Saints, you can probably afford to wait on an interior lineman and see what is draft the best prospect available with your third round pick, or even move up to get one a little bit. I still think you based off what we know now, I still think you have to target a playmaker at wide receiver with your first round pick. Go ahead and sign an interior lineman in free agency, somebody that's going to give you at least a few solid years of his second contract. Similar to what the similar circumstance to Larry Warford when they brought him in. And then draft a rookie to develop, hopefully quickly. And then use the rest of your draft and free agent signings to fortify your defensive depth, especially once we start to see how their in-house free agents shake themselves out. If they can't retain Von Bell, if they lose both Eli Apple and P.J. Williams, and I think that they will, cornerback becomes a need. Even if they do retain and eat Janoris Jenkins' contract, you still need at least one more cornerback. So the list of needs for this franchise going into 2020, the list is a lot longer than people think it is.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Well, we talked a lot about that. Any last interesting points from Mickey's comments and before we start wrapping up?
No, I mean, he echoed pretty much how we have felt and been saying about Brees. It sounds stronger than ever. That Drew Brees will be back in a New Orleans Saints uniform. I don't think too many sane thinking people thought otherwise. I'm sitting on the edge of my seat right now. I want to fast forward a month, 6 weeks, so that way we can get into free agency and start to see how this thing shakes out. Because the Saints do have a lot of in-house questions to answer there, and at this point, all any of us can do is sort of speculate. Unfortunately, once again, like we talked about in the opening of the show, we're going to be sitting here for the 10th consecutive year watching a Super Bowl, whether you choose to watch it or not, but watching a Super Bowl thinking, what could have been?
Yeah, what could have been? Again. All right. I just read an interesting story from our Patriot Maven colleague, and Vinny Cesari is now a part of the Patriots coaching staff.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations to him.
His father was a coach, wasn't he? Yes.
Very accomplished coach. And his father, Sal Sinceri, actually played at Pitt on this terrific early and mid '80s University of Pittsburgh teams. Sal Sinceri, much like his son Vinny would turn out to be, had a somewhat promising NFL career, cut way short. We never got to see what either man was capable of in the NFL because of injuries. But yes, Sal, I don't know if Sal Sinceri still coaches, but I know he put together a successful coaching career. And we wish all the luck to Vinny. It's a shame it's got to be in New England, but I think he'll do well.
Yeah. Let's see how he does. All right, Bob. Tell everybody what to expect this coming week from you from the New Orleans Saints team channel site on SI.
Like we said, and I don't know if I can keep my eyes open long enough to finish it for the wee hours of the morning, but definitely in the next day, you're going to see what we talked about earlier, an article that's just kind of laments the missed opportunities that we've seen out of the New Orleans Saints earlier this decade. I'm only going to touch upon the previous tragedies, but hopefully focus on, and then definitely focus on what this latest missed opportunity means for the team, and why we shouldn't give up hope on the New Orleans Saints just yet. It's not all a negative article. I'm also going to be taking a look at potential cap casualties from this roster. We see it throughout the NFL every single year. A big contract kind of cut loose, or a potential renegotiation. We've all mentioned it and touched on a few possible players that could fall into that category. As we did our off-season wind downs, but I'm going to target a couple players in particular, and then we're going to start to do our position by position off-season breakdown. How we think the New Orleans Saints are going to address each specific position via free agency or the draft or both, and how much importance each position should merit front office's attention. And before you know it, in the blink of an eye, we're going to start our always fun, and I really do have fun doing these, draft profiles, profiling individual prospects based off of not only their draft combine numbers, but breaking down college film. I know John Hendricks also loves to do that kind of thing. So we'll probably, because the combine is about a week or so after the Super Bowl. So it's going to be a busy off season.
Yeah. Can't wait. And I think it's going to be some good content that you guys are going to deliver for the fans. All right. Mm-hmm. How can everybody find you on the World Wide Web?
Well, I can be found individually on Facebook, Bob Rose, and also on Twitter at BobbyR2613. As Kyle mentioned earlier, all of our works can be found through the Saints News Network and the Saints Maven site on SI.com. We post our articles on our individual pages too, but if you go to SI.com, give us a follow. You can follow us as individual writers too, and I think set yourself up for alerts so that way when we do post articles, you don't have to go hunting for it. It pops right up. In addition to that, please join and support our Bayou Blitz Facebook group and Facebook page and Twitter page. Our Facebook group is highly interactive and ever growing. We obviously post our articles on there too, but we like to spark up conversations, debates, and it's not a group where you're going to see any bullying whatsoever. Neither Kyle, myself, or any of our administrators on that page will tolerate that. And I know it's been a rough off season so far, but everybody has been pretty well behaved. But yeah, by all means, join our Bayou Blitz Facebook page. I don't think you'll regret it. You'll have a ton of fun, and everybody has an equal say-so in there.
Yeah, and guys, don't forget, we like to hear from you on our site. We want to drive some of that commentary there to the site where you guys are able to post your ideas and your comments on SI.com's Saints Team Channel site as well. Don't forget, you can be able to follow us. Oh, before that, the Pro Bowl is going to be on Sunday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for you guys to be able to watch the 10 guys. Like we reported, Marshawn Lattimore is not a part of that crew that's going to be out there fielded on the team for the NFC. But excuse me, we should have a pretty good number of guys represented. I think this is the most ever for the New Orleans Saints. The previous high that we had was 10. So 11 is a winning number for the New Orleans Saints at this time. So those 11 players, if you do not know them by name now, it's Michael Thomas, Cam Jordan, Marshawn Lattimore, Will Lutz, Deontay Harris, Teron Armstead, Drew Brees, Alvin Kamara, Larry Warford, as well as Jared Cook and Andrus Peat. Will Lutz and Deontay Harris are the only two first-timers in the Pro Bowl. Mm-hmm. So good luck to you guys. So it's going to be on Sunday inside the Camping World Stadium in Orlando, Florida. All right. Oh, I got to ask you this, Bob. I mean, we didn't touch on this, and I know we're going a little bit longer. Man, how does the NFL justify Bill Vinovich being the referee for the Super Bowl?
Wow. We try to keep ourselves a PG or at least PG-13 rated show. So I have no words. Obviously, what we have yelled and screamed about on our show, and we are one of many shows to do it, demanding culpability and accountability from the NFL officiating crew all the way up to its corporate and front office. It's quite obvious that they do not feel the same way. It is an absolute slap in the face to fans, certainly New Orleans Saints fans and the franchise, but I believe NFL fans everywhere, that this man even still has a job, let alone gets the highest honor in his particular profession, which is supervising and officiating a Super Bowl. It should be absolutely insulting to any NFL fan everywhere. And it speaks volumes for how arrogant and borderline corrupt that the league office truly is.
Well, his second one being a Super Bowl ref, man. Interesting. Not only that, guys, we really got called into question the fact that on January 20th, it was the first year anniversary of the no call. Al Riveron is making decisions by himself on most occasions, seems like. And I have to agree with Sean Payton that there should be a committee who are absolutely making some sense to these critical calls that are affecting the game. Because if the New Orleans Saints would have gotten the call in the Seattle Seahawks game, that could have changed some ties and swapped out some possibility for the Saints to host a divisional game instead of playing a wild card game. But still, you got to take care of business wherever business is to be taken care of. So that's still on the Saints. I tell you, man, all I'm going to say is I believe right now in the National Football League, just like in the NCAA, there are two entities that don't really police themselves. They don't really have to. Okay? That's what makes them dangerous.
Yep.
Okay? Now, every corporation does have its fallacies and great points. And the National Football League is a multi-billion-dollar entity where they should have enough to be able to invest new technology in the replay system, right? They should have enough to be able to pay for some extra full-time referees, right? And they should have enough to be able to have some on-field big screens that they can roll out to the referees instead of giving them a Microsoft Surface tablet to be able to see if this is a good call or not, man. That's all I'm saying, Bob. If you got pylon cam now and you got some cameras here and you got overhang cameras, you got cable cameras across the field, you got to tell me we can't do a better job in the technology that you can only see one or two little angles here and there. And if it were not for the broadcast cameras, they don't see the calls. That's ludicrous, man. That's ludicrous.
Yep.
If police officers can have some body cam, can you have some body cam on these officials?
Yeah, the technology is there.
Man.
Yeah, that's another. It's such a touchy topic.
Yeah. I know we're going long tonight, boy. We're off. We're going off in the wild blue yonder. But it's just does not make sense to me, man. That's all I'm saying. How do you keep telling the fans, we want you to keep coming back. We want you to keep paying for these television rights through NFL Ticket and other revenues through subscription sources here and there and other, but we don't want to do the investment where the investment needs to be taking place. Okay? And the conservative approach has been lacking due response in a timely fashion. That's why it was so surprising that they made the replay calls going into for the PIs, right? So now, if you look at the PIs were highly unsuccessful. I mean, the challenges of the PIs were highly unsuccessful. I don't know the last number. I was trying to get that last percentage, but I know as of in late November, only 4% of the calls were being overturned. That's crazy. Crazy. So something has to be done about this in all. All right. That's all I got, Bob. Anything else?
No. You know, I try to avoid opening the can of officiating worms because I don't want to get myself in trouble or our show in trouble. But yeah, other than that, I know we're going to have to get through the Pro Bowl. We'll probably break down at least our Super Bowl predictions on next week's show. And like I said, we do, whether we like the way the season ended or not, we do have some exciting off-season coverage in store for you. Just bear with us, fans, just like yourselves. We're working our way out of a funk of depression ourselves.
Yeah. We'll be all right. Everybody be all right. Don't go near the Crescent City connection. All right. This is Kyle T. Mosley with Bob Rose of the Bayou Blitz. Guys, don't forget, like I said earlier, don't forget to follow us on social media at Saints News, on Twitter, Instagram, as well as on Facebook at Saints News. And Bob Rose, how can they follow you again? One last time.
Bob Rose on Facebook and at BobbyR2613 on Twitter. And obviously, like Kyle mentioned, it really helps us out if you follow us individually and follow our site at si.com. We do really enjoy the interaction, and I believe that we are extremely informative from every angle that we can think of, so you'll enjoy it.
Yep. Don't forget, John Hendricks is with us now on Saints News, as well as Aaron Miller and Dr. Caller Antoine and Brendan Borland. All right. Kyle T. Mosley, Bob Rose, we are out. Take care, Saints fans. Talk to you next week. Who dat?